So, no? Yes?
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Erwin Voloder. I'm the Senior Policy Fellow for the European Blockchain Association, where I head research and advocacy between our members, the broader Web3 community, and public institutions. And I'm joined today with 3 out of 4 originally intended wonderful panelists. Unfortunately, Emma couldn't join us today. However, we will do our best to continue on in her stead. The topic that we're discussing today is one that is fast-moving and changing, and you could say also very politically charged, and that is the role of CBDCs and the way it will shape the world for consumers and businesses. As many of you may be aware, central bank digital currencies have recently exploded into the mainstream, with roughly around 90% of global GDP currently across different jurisdictions in either research, POC, or an active pilot of a central bank digital currency. And our 4 panelists today will be touching on the various aspects from a retail and from a wholesale perspective, and also from their unique company insights and what they are doing, either building on CBDC rails or preparing for CBDCs in capital markets, and how they also view the role of CBDCs and the way that it's going to develop over the course of the next few years. So without further ado, I will hand it over to James to kick off the introductions, and we can move on.
Great, thanks Erwin. Can you guys hear at the back? This is working? Okay, thank you. So I'm James Wallis. I work for Ripple. I've been working in financial technology for over 25 years. And my role at Ripple is I lead the work we're doing with central banks around CBDCs and commercial banks around stablecoins and tokenized deposits. Ripple, I'm sure many of you have heard of Ripple, but for those of you that haven't, is a 10-year-old company based in San Francisco. We are most well known for our global payments network called RippleNet, which operates in over 70 countries. We have other businesses, one of which is the central bank digital currency group, which I lead. In terms of just sort of framing out briefly the landscape, when you look at truly digital money, so I'm not talking about e-money, I'm talking about digital money that could be implemented on a blockchain or a DLT. There are really sort of 3 main flavors. There are central bank digital currencies, which are issued and backed by central banks on one end. On the other end of the scale, there are native cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and so forth. And then sitting somewhere in the middle are stable coins, and of which there are multiple different flavors of stable coins. Our perspective is all will coexist. So CBDC is just part of the ecosystem. Central bank money in most countries is less than 10% of the money available. Crypto is typically less than 1%, and the rest of it is commercial bank money. So, we're trying to address with our solution all of those categories. We've built a full stack solution from a ledger. You can issue either on a private ledger or a public ledger. And then we've built a full stack solution for minting, distributing, transacting, and so forth with digital currencies. Our ultimate sort of vision, if you like, is to help people move money very quickly, at very low cost, and a very sustainable way, both domestically and cross-border. We see that a lot of the work that's going on at the moment is really early stages development, thinking about policy, thinking about the technology, thinking about use cases. At the end of the day, CBDCs won't get widely used if the use cases don't provide value. If it's not saving people money or enabling them to do something else that they can't do today. So we kind of think of the basic plumbing as a platform for innovation. So hopefully most of that will be private sector innovating on top of what the central banks build out as the basics.
Wonderful. Nadia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nadia Filali. I'm head of blockchain and crypto asset in Caisse des Dépôts in France. Caisse des Dépôts is a kind of a public bank of development there, and we are working on blockchain and crypto from 2015 now on different topics. Could be the point of CBDC, the pilot regime, identity, SSI, and we are also a custodian on crypto for some public clients, and so we have an agreement on PSAN in France. And I'm also the chair of INADBA, International Association for Trusted Blockchain Application, that is based in Brussels. And we are working also on these topics with our members and also with the government advisory body that we launch on those subjects in different countries. On the point of CBDC, I think that I will more talk about the wholesale part than the retail part, because the retail part is something that could be difficult to achieve in the few years, and particularly in Europe, I think, for many point of view, because there is the question of the privacy, there is the question of the acceptability of the public, and there is perhaps something about around how we can stay with a kind of inclusion for everyone. It's important for our group, Caisse des Dépôts, because we are also leading the French Post and La Banque Postale, and it's a mission for us to have some access to the bank for everyone. It's not only a question of age; it's also a question of people who cannot access to the web, or people who have a handicap. And on the wholesale, I think there is a use case really important on the point on the settlement, and we work on that point with some French banks like BNP and Crédit Agricole, and two startups. I think one in the room, it's Tokeny, and the blockchain XDev, and we try to launch what we name CIDC, Commercial Anti-Bank Digital Currency, on the subject of the settlement, and doing that with different technology on Tezos and Ethereum, trying to work also on the point of interoperability, because there is an issue there that could be difficult to achieve also, and working on different currency, because if you are in the capital market, you are not working only euro under euro, but you can work euro under dollar and or other currency. So it's important to work on this topic also.
Good morning. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Good morning to all of you. Hola, Barcelona. I'm not doing a spreadsheet. I'm not doing a fact sheet. I'm head of innovation for Société Générale, based in Luxembourg, and I hope you will enjoy my French accent. So blockchain crypto is not something new for us. We are working since now, I believe, 8-9 years with all the different use cases. I'm based in Luxembourg and in charge of the security services side. So we already have some live offer in terms of record keeping of cryptocurrency for the client and segment asset management. So it's already live, but we have no CBDC because it's not yet the reality. And also what is very important is that we are working closely with our subsidiary Société Générale Forge. We have made already the issuance of EIB and a lot of issuance and in the primary and secondary market. And we were the first one to do it in a public blockchain and with the French CBDC of Banque de France. So it has been done 2 years ago now. So we work a lot on that topic. So regarding CBDC wholesale, and it's part mainly of our focus today, yes, it is something that is necessary for us, and we work a lot on that topic. And for the retail, we work also on that topic, but yes, it's more an exploration phase for the moment.
Thank you very much. You all touched on some very important points. I'd like to pick up on the role of CBDCs in capital markets. I think would be a good place to start. So, where do you see the key value add for a CBDC in this sector of the economy? If you could pick one or two points.
Yes. So I will continue. Yes, it's like finally it's like having a Ferrari, a strong car, and you are limited to 20 kilometers per hour. it's the same. So definitely, we see there is a strong potential for the tokenization of financial asset and non-financial asset today. In the capital market, if you just have a look to the different figures, there is a potential market of 20 trillions of US dollar by 2030, with equities, with bonds, certificate products, real estate, and so on. So there is indeed a strong potential, but if you don't have the cash on chain, you will not have the efficiency. What does it mean to have the cash off chain? That means that you will have to make the tokenization, and on the other side, you will have to manage the cash. Today, we have a T+2, T+3 in terms of settlement. With the cash off chain, it will be a T+1. With the cash off chain, T+1, but with the cash on chain, everything on chain, with a CBDC, it will be T+0 or T+15 minutes. Let's say T+15 minutes. CBDC is indeed very, very important also from a risk perspective, because if you want to make a DVP with a stable coin and another issuer from a capital markets and risk perspective, it will make no sense for us. So definitely the time settlement is very important. The efficiency is very important. And the last point is for me the cross-border payment, which will bring a lot of value added in countries where it makes sense.
If I could just add one comment. I totally agree with your points on the efficiency and speed. I think the other thing to think about is some of the actual sort of systems that are used beyond the settlement. So, for example, there's a number of projects looking at securities depositories on the blockchain. So, you know, taking beyond just the currency, but also the blockchain technology as a storage mechanism. So if you get all of those together, then you have a Ferrari with like 3 turbos or something, right?
Yes, I agree with you. And I think there is we are waiting for that for now 5 or 6 years, because, for example, in Caisse des Dépôts and also with Société Générale, we began to work on the security leg, and we know that it's working on the security leg. There is no problem with that. But what we need to do together, I think, because working on those subject and globally on blockchain and crypto assets, it's something that need to be worked by collaboration between all the actors. I think it's really important. It's that we need to have a reflection on all the process and all the actors there, and to see how we can make them go on this new subject and go to the future of the capital market on security, and linked it by a digital currency. Could be a CBDC, could be what I name a CIDC, because I trust also that the commercial bank can issue some stable coin. And the point is that for the moment, we know that some intermediaries, for example, the CSD, and even the custodian, are not really motivated by this issue, because it will disrupt their model. So it's a point that need to be looked. And something that was said in one of the roundtable this morning is the question of the business model and the question of the volume. Because for the moment, and what do SG Forge is very interesting, but there is one operation, one insurance, and if you are working on capital market, and I know that it's difficult for me to ask our desk to try to do one operation. They said, why I will do one operation? I have something that's working, and I need some volume. So the pilot regime for that, it could be an interesting sandbox in Europe. I know that they don't use the word sandbox, but I use the word sandbox because it's a sandbox. But it's important to make us work together, and it's what we are trying to do, for example, in France with Paris Plus and all the actors, to go on this market and to make that it could have a sense, a real sense, but with volume. Because for the moment, there is no volume, and even to motivate the central bank, not only the European one, to issue a CBDC that could work on the whole sale market, we need to have more volume, I think. It's one of the points.
I completely agree. And to change gears slightly and pick up on something that you had also said in the introduction, Nadia, was the role of, you mentioned also intermediaries. So I would like to ask the three of you what you also see as the role of intermediaries, let's say from a retail perspective, to change it up a little bit. For example, commercial banks, PSPs, and the like, and how this intermediation system could function and to the end effect for how that would benefit consumers.
I can start for this question. For me, there is still a place for banks in the future in the context of the retail CBDC. Still need to have an intermediaries, because I just take the example of my mother. If I ask my mother to download a wallet to transact with a DigiEuro in the future, for my daughter it will be quite easy, because we know that if you just take the example in Europe or in France, about 10% of the population, they own cryptocurrency. And for the 10%, you have 50% between, I think it should be between 18 and 30 years old. So for the retail, I see there is still a place for banks in the future. And when we see the different setup in place, it is in China, in the different project, there is still a place for banks, for the distribution, for the onboarding, to take care of the KYC and so on. After, one size does not fit all. I think that they will build all the retail CBDC depending on their needs. For example, in Europe, it's still in progress, but from what we have heard, it will not be a programmable digital currency. There will be some limitation and so on. So there will be some specific CBDC in different countries depending on the needs of the country, because the needs in Africa will not be the needs in China, will not be the same needs in US and in Europe. And yes, after we will have to see what will looks like the DigiEuro or the Digi other currency, and let's see where banks have a role to play. But at least to onboard KYC, collateral probably, opening wallet. After we will have no remuneration on the DigiEuro, I think, so we will not make anything on that. By the way, just think about regulation, and we will have to deal with regulation. So the regulation and the conception of the CBDC will help us to understand where we will have a role to play.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that in every instance, there will be intermediaries of some sort. Central banks are not equipped to open accounts for individual citizens, right? They work with the banking sector. I think we'll see, as Laurent said, different flavors around the world. I think in some of the emerging markets, we work in all continents apart from Antarctica, and we have more than 10 active projects, and talking to a lot more central banks than that. And in every single instance, there is a role for the commercial banks, as distribution methodology, onboarding, KYC, and so forth. But I think we'll also see in some of the emerging markets where traditional banking is not it does not got a great penetration because they don't serve very well the people with low incomes. I think we'll see other entities, whether that be payment providers or fintechs or other startup organizations, that will, they most likely will need to get licensed by the central bank. But the central banks just are not equipped to be able to deal with the retail. I think we will see different flavors and we'll see different sets of rules. I think one of the interesting things is when you start talking about cross-border and you have, maybe within the ECB zone, you have one set of rules on how much currency you can hold, and then in another jurisdiction it's different. And then when you start doing cross-border, how does that all work out? So that's an interoperability topic which we may come on to later, but definitely 100% intermediaries for CBDCs.
I have a question here. We are all talking about Web3, crypto, and blockchain, and I want to know who is in the room and is not an intermediary. Because there is here a paradox, and I think all of you as a moment a kind of intermediaries. And the point is that if we are talking about CBDCs for retail, the issuer will be the central bank, okay. But what is the services and the offer that you have around that? The bank is not only issuing money for the client. It's not the only role of the bank. They have loans, they have saving, there are different products in there. And it's the same for the PSP. It's the same for some corporates and some GAFAM that are working on the subject. So I think that the intermediaries will continue to be there. Perhaps the business model will change. Perhaps the products will change. But we are all human. And for us, I think it's difficult to try to be totally decentralized. Or if we have the reflection about CBDC, to be totally centralized by the central bank. We don't talk about that, but there is a key point there that it's a paradox to say, okay, it's very great to have CBDC and don't understand that it will be issued by a central bank. So something really centralized. It's my first point, and there is another point it's totally something related to the policy, the public policy and the geopolitics, and I agree with Laurent, and could be as French people and Moroccan people in another part could be only agree with that we don't have the same value, the same usage in the different part of the world. So it's important to take care about that. And I think the project that we saw in China, that we saw in North Africa, and that we saw in Europe are not dedicated to the same objective. And it could be useful to use the programmability of CBDC, I think, but here I think in Europe it's not the main objective that we saw. So intermediaries, to answer to your question, I think will be there. Their model could change, and we will see who will win here.
Just this elegantly leads us into our next question, which all three of you have briefly alluded and James kind of foreshadowed, which is it's interoperability at the end of the day. DOT rails, they promise to collapse time, distance, and cost. However, if you look at Mbridge or the experiments between Capgemini and Swift, or for example what the BIS is doing, the biggest challenge seems to be how to intermingle, intertwine, interconnect these CBDC arrangements cross-border. What do you view as the biggest impediment currently to realizing that kind of digital currency connectivity in the future?
Yeah, I think firstly, I think interoperability as a term is widely used, and there are several different definitions. So, one level of interoperability is just being able to interoperate with the existing payment schemes. Being able to go and buy a coffee with your CBDC, with your wallet. Another is a more technical, which is the interoperability between different protocols. Different countries will pick different protocols for their ledger systems. And then the third one, which I think is really where you're driving here, is cross-border interoperability. It does depend a little bit on what you really want to try and achieve. If you're trying to achieve, an atomic settlement cross-border on different protocols, and there's some deep engineering problems that need to be solved. If you're trying to really solve the more of a business solution in terms of actually being able to make the transaction very efficient. There's some techniques that could be used for cross-border, like automatic market making and so forth, or digital exchanges. Lots of different sort of technical aspects. But at the end of the day, there has to be a willingness or a desire from those jurisdictions to want to be able to do trade and business with each other. So there's definitely going to be a need for standardization. But I think we shouldn't wait for that. If you wait for standards, we still, I'll have a grey beard down to here by the time the standards are developed. So I think they evolve over time. Just a quick, comment on Ripple. So we use digital assets on our cross-border payment network as a neutral bridge currency. So we have a instant settlement without the need for pre-funding through the use of digital assets. So there are some solutions out there, but that's still relatively small scale when you think about the trillions of dollars that are flowing around the world every time. But yeah, I think we need to look at all those three elements of interoperability.
I fully agree with you. Interoperability is still a problem, but it was a problem in the capital market 20 years ago. So we will not have to reinvent the wheel. We have to work, as we said, for CBDC, retail and wholesale. They will be built by purpose, depending on the different usage. So we just need to take that in account. It is a case for the tokenization. It is the same case for the tokenization. So we have to work together on different same protocol, on a different standard. So that's why we have built also a protocol in SGForge, which is public. And also we need to work together with all the central bank. It is already the case with BIS. As you said, there is 8 or 9 projects. With Banque de France, Nadia, I think there is a project Jura. I think they are working also with cross-border payment, with different CBDC and so on. So yes, definitely, this is a topic, but it's not something new, and we have to work together.
And perhaps I totally agree on the interoperability. It's a subject, and we need to work on that. And perhaps one of the other subjects, you talk about remuneration on the CBDC. There is a subject of governance, because all these actors will have to define how they will work together. Where is the responsibility between the people in the issue on the transaction, even in the cash, and how we work the bridges between some public network and some consortium network, for example. And perhaps another point, that's perhaps some CBDC will not be issued on a blockchain. It could be a case even in Europe. And so all this topic need to be worked. And I think it's why one of the key points that for the moment it's not for 2023 or 2024, but more for the end of the decade. But I hope we will work well on that together, all of us.
And just a last word, because I see that I have a friend from US in the panel. We have to be strong in Europe. So if it is a wholesale or a retail CBDC, we still need to think that in Europe, if you are not doing it in Europe, the other will do it, and probably in Europe too. So if you want to be in the future not the best in the world, but we have to work all together in the different topics to make Europe more stronger.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The speed of development around CBDCs is all over the map, right? You've got, the US is probably going to be one of the slowest. So much politics and different bodies, different people having a vote. I know the ECB is probably a little bit further ahead, but still a lot of road to go. But there are many smaller countries and smaller economies, including some of the Eastern European countries, that are already, I think, the thinking is further ahead. And for them, the benefits are a little bit more clear, right? Because they want to make sure that they can, their currency remains relevant, that they can do trade, they can attract tourism, lots of different use cases. And then it's outside of Europe. As I mentioned, financial inclusion is a big driver. So there's lots of different reasons, but I think competitiveness around trade is a key driver for everyone.
Thank you very much for your very insightful contributions. I realize, Victoria, that we've gone slightly over time. I do apologize. However, I hope that everybody did enjoy the panel, and we can give our panelists a round of applause. That would be us.